So in this video, we're going to talk about what we can do when we create a shape correctly and how we can manipulate that shape. So if we come back here into Inkscape and we go here to our Bezier tool and we make sure we're on B-spline path, and let's just draw a very simple oval done correctly, which means that I highlight that point, click and let go so I don't have any sharp corners. And I have now an oval with a stroke around the outside. So I don't have anything filling this in. However, if I come to my palette down here at the bottom, and let's just click this nice dark green color, I fill it in with dark green. So I have a fill, and around the outside, I have a stroke. So if I come up here into my fill and stroke tab, and I come into my fill sub tab here, and I click the X, it'll remove that fill. And if I click this flat color next to it, it'll put it back in. So I can turn that fill on and I can turn that fill off. Same thing with my stroke. Let me zoom in a little bit here because this stroke is hard to see. That thin line around the outside, I can turn that stroke off, or I can turn that stroke on, off, and on. I can also change my stroke style. If I change that to a 1 and I hit enter, you can see that that stroke around the outside, it gets a tad bigger. So that is stroke, fill, and how you manipulate stroke and fill. Let's talk about another thing, which is insetting and outsetting. So let's say that I want to make this just a tad bigger. I got a couple options. One is if I go back to my arrow, I've got these pull points. And if I come over to these, you can see I start to pull, but it's pulling it up and to the right. I can pull it directly to the left. I can pull it kind of up and down. It stretches it in that direction. That might not be what we want. If we want to make this directly bigger, but in all directions, we use a function called insetting and outsetting. So if I come up here to path, I go to inset, you can see it's just making it a tad smaller. And there are shortcuts for this. I can do Control 9 and then Control 0. Control 9, Control 0, which makes it bigger and smaller in all directions. It's going to be important later on. And the last thing I can do is a little bit of node manipulation. So if I come over to the right and I come down and I hit this edit path by nodes, you can see now that my shape has these nodes around the outside, and I can click on that node and I can now grab that node and I can move it around. And we have these handles on the outside that we can also manipulate. If I get them red, I can move those around. We want to avoid doing this, but it is something, if you just need to do something, give something a little bit of a touch up, you can certainly do that. So at this point, what I would do is walk through everything that I just did, make a couple shapes, manipulate it, change the fill, change the stroke, come in here to this node and move some of these nodes around and just see what you can do.